Okay. Speaking of which, the IPWA, does it calibrate? Does it collaborate with other authorities in different industries?
Yeah, very much so. We've built, when you're doing submissions, etc. So we've built relationships with Infrastructure Victoria.
Yeah.
So I've actually attended one of the meetings I attended was at Infrastructure Victoria, and it was great to meet people, CEOs and people from all over Australia, reviewing Infrastructure Australia. So we've built relationships with Infrastructure Australia and the new Chief Executive Officer there. The ALGA, we've got that ongoing relationship with a regular State of the Assets report, which I think is really important, high level. Now, if you're talking about 560 councils in Australia, and most submit, and there's a big effort to try and get all of them to submit again this year, because it gives a really good indication to me that should be empirical evidence that government should look at and help us build our case. It fits in with our white paper about maturity and education and training, etc. So we work with state government departments, federal government ministers, departments, state peak local government bodies like MAV. I'm hoping to arrange a meeting with the new CEO at the MAV and talk about all the things we're talking about, but in a much more succinct way. Because I think the MAV is, if you look at Victoria, we talk about this top-down approach. Like, we can train all the practitioners we like and get that body of knowledge raring to go, but if they're at that ceiling and they can't get past, they've got to be enabled by the executive. So if we use the MAV, for example, it'd be great if they could develop some policies, because the CEOs, mayors and CEOs of all councils are members, participate. So if we can get them on board, and the MAV themselves are driving themselves, they will push down on the CEOs and the executive to deliver all this, and it'll all meet in the middle, and then I will retire. And Engineers Australia, obviously, we're a technical society of Engineers Australia at IPWA, so we liaise with them, and Romilly Mathew, who was the Chief Executive Officer of Infrastructure Australia, is now the CEO at Engineers Australia. So she's got a wealth of knowledge. I've listened to a number of her presentations, and she's a great asset in the sense of asset management and infrastructure and engineering.
Cool. That's good. Well, the question is, when will I retire? I don't know. I'd like to think I could, but no. But then, while the brain's active, it ain't going to retire.
Well, I retired pretty well from most work around 2018.
I know you did.
But I still do the occasional work as required, if it interests me. But I read an article to do with fishing, which is one of my passions, that by someone who said that they're 70, and normally when you're trying to get a big boat off a trailer in and out of a lake, by the time you're 75, he said that starts to get a lot more difficult. And I thought, gosh, that's only 5 years off.
It's not.
Maybe I should do it all now while I can. So I am. It is a bit of a conflict for me at the moment, my passion versus my other passion, which means sitting behind a computer.
Yeah. Well, take a friend when you're getting the boat out. Well, maybe you need to look at
my granddaughter, Sandy.
Oh, there you go. Send her to the gym. The other side of that, I suppose, maybe you can focus on the natural assets while you're at it. Being the fish.
I definitely do.
Being the fish.
That is definitely. I use it to switch off, Sandy. I go out there 2 days ago and I was out fishing. There's the kangaroos and the birds and and the fish that I couldn't catch that were jumping out in front of me. But yeah, you take away some great photos in your brain.
You do, and it also generates other things, ideas, and things you could
It
be
does.
doing.
Yes.
That you'd like
Get
to
away
do.
from the clutter.
Yeah, get away from that. Example of we talked about this earlier. Examples of a project that had a significant positive impact. You don't have to mention any names, but a particular project.
Yeah. Look, because I've spent so long in Queensland, West Australia, Tassie, Victoria, it's at New South. I've seen so many different things. But I've seen examples where asset management or proactive asset management, for example, with the stormwater drainage system, where they've collected detailed inventory, condition, and levels, etc. So they've been able to do hydraulic analysis and go back to the executive and council and say, hang on, if we have these floods, which we will have, this is the impact. And to be able to demonstrate with actual evidence based on their asset management work that this could occur, and then when they overlay the risk, it really does gain attention. Probably one of the simplest and biggest impacts I've seen that impact asset management positively is to have asset management or sound asset management put on the council's corporate risk register. As a high-level issue. And then the auditors see that, then the internal audit, well, what are you doing to ameliorate that risk? And, well, we've just bought a new asset management system, but by the way, it doesn't work, or, well, what are you doing about it? Because now you won't be able to tell us this, etc. So that's a simple thing, a powerful, simple thing. Another one is where just having a really good asset management system and really diligent staff, you were talking about those people that really get in there and do it, that immediately builds and makes your SAMP and your AMPs very robust. So you can put your hand on your heart and say that these are the long-term capital infrastructure issues and maintenance, etc., and whatever else, and risks with your infrastructure. And that leads to really sound long-term financial plans if you can get the two put together. And, I would love communities to actually know how well the councils are doing that, how well, but it's never made public. And I can understand why in some cases, but it'd be really good on the My Council website or whatever. The indicator is one that's put out by the Auditor General or by VAGO, and it doesn't mean anything because it includes upgrade. So if we had some good stats, genuine stats in there in those audits, that might help the executive focus a bit more. So I think that'd be a good thing. So what other things? I think one of the really significant positive impacts I've seen relating to asset management is where councils, and I've worked with some big metro councils, where they have seriously got into service planning. So the council has their council plan. They identify what services they're going to provide to the community to deliver that plan. And then you decide, well, what assets do you need to support those services and meet the desired level of service, which is all done in the community planning. So I see service planning has been a really positive impact. And I've seen projects that were from a technical engineering point of view, this one must be done. But then when you talk with the service managers, well, we're relocating, we're moving, we don't need that building anymore. So it's left hand, right hand. So service planning, I think, needs to be one of the big pushes to make sure that the assets that you do have in your inventory have a purpose, that they are there. You only have an asset to support a service. It's the only reason you need
Yeah.
it. And when some councils I've worked at, when you get into the service planning and you look at the criticality, etc., and a lot of these services have grown from a grant, so they cost nothing, and then they grow and grow and grow, and then the grant disappears and council has this massive ongoing operational cost.
Yeah.
So going back 4 or 5 years ago, working with some fairly big municipalities, they actually in their service planning decided they were going to get out of some services. The grants had stopped, so we get out, and that became a policy. If the grant stops, we're out.
Yeah.
They obviously consider it on their merits each time, but that dropped off the need for sometimes significant assets. It opened up those assets for other uses. So to me, service planning is a missing link now. Missing link. It just jumped to mind. In 2012, I presented to the World Municipal Engineering Congress in Finland. Roger was over there too, by the way, presenting as he does. But my paper was service planning, the missing link in asset management. I still find it difficult, but I have been inching my way in the ISO world, because service planning, the people dealing with production lines couldn't understand this concept of service planning until I was talking to Johan, who works at Tetra Pak, and he told me about they had this multi-million-dollar factory producing plastic straws, and all of a sudden the world didn't want plastic straws, and they got a perfectly oiled machine, but nothing to produce that anyone wants. So that's why I said, well, there's your example of service planning in a production line type asset management sense. You need to be doing your environmental scanning and whatever.
All that.
Can they convert it to cardboard straws?
Yeah.
I don't know. But service planning impacts on everybody. You need to understand your services and what services you wish to provide, then what assets you need to support that service. And I think there was a push to have combined service and asset management plans. Sort of 5-10 years ago, they sort of come in and out of fashion. I think they get too complicated to put it all together. You need to do your service planning, do your community engagement and all of that, and find out all your levels of service, etc. And, with the dollars, if you want flowers in every roundabout, well, it's going to cost you this. If you just want grass or rocks, it'll cost you this.
Yeah, you got to do
levels of service.
You got to do the hard work.
But then you build your asset to that.
Yep. No, I agree. Enjoyed this video? Press the like button and subscribe. If you'd like to see more, please click on the Patreon link below and sign up.